right, we're glad you're still there. Now, the exit of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from ECOWAS has sent shockwaves throughout the region. Now, people are asking, what does this mean for security, for the economy, for regional cooperation?
Exactly. This is a big move with far-reaching implications. We're talking about 3 countries pulling out of a regional bloc that has shipped West Africa for decades. So what drove this decision? Was it economic pressure, security concerns, or something more?
And perhaps, more importantly, what happens next? How will this impact trade, security, and the fight against terrorism in the Sahel?
These are critical questions, and to help us break it all down and hopefully give us answers, we're being joined now by Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa, Commissioner for Political Peace and Stability, ECOWAS.
Ambassador, we thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, what do you make of this move, and what does this signal for the future of ECOWAS?
Thank you for having me. You remember on the 28th of January last year, when the 3 countries, that's Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, decided that they were withdrawing from ECOWAS with immediate effect. Okay, ECOWAS insisted on following its treaties. Okay, so the treaty requires that any country wishing to pull out gives 1 year notice. That notice expired yesterday. Okay. 29. So officially, they are out. The first feeling is psychological. It is a sad day for regional integration. It's a sad day for the region. Why? Because ECOWAS is not just an organization, it's a community, and it is of people, and all that. So what has happened is going to have adverse effect on the populations of West Africa. That is I think the first overwhelming feeling, about the withdrawal of these countries. Beyond that, ECOWAS is an organization of solidarity. You see, in international affairs, you need numbers to be able to press your your demands. If, for example, the region has a candidate for an international organization, it is very important for all member states to support that candidate to stand a better chance of securing that position. Today we are fewer. We are 12 instead of 15. So that impacts the leverage of ECOWAS itself on the international scene. But it's even going to impact more on the 3 countries that have withdrawn from, the region. Third is the problem of insecurity. That has been one of the reasons that the regimes in these 3 countries gave for withdrawing from ECOWAS. The epicenter of terrorism is in the Sahel. And as we have seen recently, there have been attacks in coastal countries, in Benin, in Togo, in Cote d'Ivoire. Ghana is having, cross-border flow of refugees and all that. You need cooperation, cross-border collaboration in order to effectively counter, terrorism. So with this departure, there is the absolute need for arrangements to be made in such a way that the 2 parts of the original ECOWAS collaborate in order to confront, this existential threat, facing the entire region. So that is a major issue. You talked about trade. That is the ECOWAS enacted the free movement of people, the right of residence, and establishment in, the member states of, ECOWAS. That is in jeopardy. The populations of these regions, of these 3 countries, are in a panic mode, right now. How will their movement and settlement? We've got over 10 million of the population from these people from these countries residing in neighboring countries, in particular in Cote d'Ivoire, in Ghana, in Nigeria, from Niger, and then others. What is their fate? And that is why I think the heads of state of ECOWAS, under the chairmanship of His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, took the very wise decision, 2 days ago, to say that while we are still negotiating the divorce with these three countries, the status quo with respect to the free movement of people should remain in force, meaning citizens of these three countries who hold the ECOWAS passport or laissez-passer should still be allowed, to travel without visa, throughout the region in accordance with the, protocol and others. And also to make sure that the citizens of these countries who are working for the region are accorded the courtesies in all these countries where they operate. So these are some of the measures that have been, taken in order to cushion, the shock and the immediate effect of the withdrawal of these three member states from the ECOWAS.
All right, many thanks, Ambassador. You say the members of these three countries are in panic mode as regards trade and, economic activities. But let's talk about security. Who really is in panic mode? The other countries left in ECOWAS, because, the region is contending with immense security challenges, especially terrorism, which informed the ECOWAS counterterrorism strategy, in which this countries formed parts of the frontline states. Now, how would their exit impact on the fight against terrorism? And are you looking into any structure to keep working together?
Yes. You see, there have been a whole lot of initiatives in the region against, terrorism. These countries, like I said earlier on, gave insecurity as one of the reasons for withdrawing. Not long ago, they decided to create a 5,000, strong brigade, collectively in order to fight terrorism. And you are aware, that there are other initiatives like the Multinational Joint Task Force, in which Nigeria plays a critical role around the Lake Chad Basin, where the Boko Haram and its offshoots, have laid siege to ordinary, people, destroying property, and then all that. There is also the Accra Initiative, which was mooted, in 2099, ostensibly to promote collaboration, cross-border collaboration between the Sahelian states and the coastal states. That is also in operation right now, and ECOWAS itself, this quarter, is having a meeting of the ministers of finance and defense of the region in order to mobilize the necessary internal resources to activate the ECOWAS counter-terrorism force. So, which means counter-terrorism is a central goal of all the parts. So, which means since we have a common agenda, it sort of holds well for collaboration, even with the political differences that we have, because terrorism knows no boundaries, and this is what we are looking forward to, that we shall continue collaboration as far as counter-terrorism is concerned, because the coastal countries who remain in ECOWAS are not going to sit down, arms folded, while terrorism crosses the border, the Sahelian borders into the coastal states. So definitely, like the Accra Initiative, the MNJTF and others would continue to fight to contain them. But then, where do they go? If you push them, they go back into the Sahel. If the Sahelians say push them, they come back to the coastal countries. So the most important thing is to hem them up, hem them in a pincer, where our brothers and sisters from the three countries and also the forces of the coastal countries actually collaborate in order to eliminate this threat. That is the defining the defining issue when it comes to security in the region.
But how did we get here? Conflicts are normal, you know, whether between individuals, countries, within a family, and all of it. How did this become seemingly intractable?
Yes, there are many reasons for this that I don't want to go into. Yes, if you look at it, the withdrawal of these countries has been without the approval of the populations. We have got similar incidents that have occurred globally, you know, right? We had Mauritania that withdrew from ECOWAS in 2000. As we speak, Mauritania wants to come back into the community, and it is still being reviewed. Britain, UK, exited the European Union, you know, some time back. So these things happen. We are, like I said, the community, and you know, the teeth and the tongue, they always fight, but they remain, you know, in the mouth together. They cannot be separated. We are separated by history, by geography, by intermarriages and interconnectedness of the population. There is no way this divorce is going to be consummated to the what a detriment of the populations of the country. There are, you know, reasons. Before, when I mentioned Brexit, for example, it is that the UK had to go through two referendums. The final one succeeded, meaning that the population gave their backing. I don't think the same thing has happened in the three countries. The military regimes took decisions on behalf of the people. We wait to see how sustainable, you know, that is, you know, in terms of military regimes and their history in our region. We are looking up to that. But they have taken a decision. ECOWAS has respected it. They gave so many reasons, you know, which I don't want to go into. ECOWAS threatening them with a military intervention, you know, in the past and others. Let me tell you, military intervention by ECOWAS member states in order to restore democracy is one of the instruments in the toolbox of ECOWAS sanctions regime. ECOWAS has used the threat before in the past, whether in Mali itself in 2012, in Gambia in 2016, but never went to the point of using it. It's one of the tools. You know, but I think...
but it was used, it was deployed in Gambia.
Yes.
It was deployed in Gambia. It was at the point they were already in the country.
Yeah, no, they were there. They were not, you know, listen, at the time, you know, that the forces of the region, whether it's Senegal and whether Nigeria, you know, were there was never any engagement.
Before the surrender of the
presence of the military, you know, around the, the airspace of Gambia was enough to convince Yahya Jammeh to abandon his plan to cling on to power. We have used it in the past, but we've never gone to the stage of using it, you know, the force. But I think in the case of Niger in particular, I think what critics have said is that the balance between mediation and military force was not properly calibrated. You know, in that you needed to pursue diplomacy, you know, to the point where it is impossible before using the threat of force. Well, the merit of that will be for historians to judge.
Okay.
You know, yes, you know, in the country. But this is what is happening. ECOWAS threatened the use of force, but never used it. But the issue is, was it enough for these three countries to say that they are withdrawing from ECOWAS? ECOWAS never used any threat against Mali. ECOWAS never even imposed sanctions on Burkina Faso. There were no sanctions on Burkina Faso. You know, so the thing is, it was Niger. And then they came together And the commonality between them is that they are all military regimes, and it is only ECOWAS among all international organizations that can pressure military regimes to hand over power. And there were already transitions in progress in Mali, in Burkina Faso, but the situation in Niger offered them a very, an excuse, in order for the military, to stay on.
What's the implication of the launch of new passports, for this, group of countries? What does it mean?
It means nothing. For ECOWAS, this is symbolic. It is just about, trying to assert sovereignty. We are broken away. We are not going to use passports with ECOWAS insignia. But let's go to the bottom of the matter. If one of the reasons that has been given is that ECOWAS is being teleguided by foreign forces, including France, as has been said before, is it the adoption of new passports or withdrawal from the franc CFA? Which is going to be more consequential, because the money that is being used, the currency being used in this country, is being controlled by the treasury in France. And that is at the heart of the economy of every nation. Okay, so if you are accusing ECOWAS of being teleguided by, France and the major countries in ECOWAS, Nigeria, Ghana, and a number of other countries, 5 others or 6, do not use the franc CFA. So it's ironic, to think, that way. If you want to withdraw, I think it is the structures that France has either facilitated or created for you. So that is the situation, within it. But I don't think this is the time to go, to try to split hairs. Okay, the situation has occurred. Now, we are looking forward. What do we do with this reality that has dawned on us? And I think that is the critical, juncture, and not to do a post-mortem of what has happened.
You just say that the teeth and the tongue, they fight, but they remain one. A lot of people have looked at this situation and they're wondering if ECOWAS would still remain. That's because Togo, for example, reportedly is considering joining these 3 countries. Ghana, which you said is a strong force in the ECOWAS, has sent a special envoy to the AES. What does this mean for ECOWAS?
For us, it is part and parcel of the diplomatic efforts and also the ramifications of this withdrawal. Those are some of the ramifications that we've seen. Let's say Togo, in particular President General Iyadema and General Gowon, they were the 2 pillars for the creation of ECOWAS, right? So we've heard about an interview given by Robert Dussey, the foreign minister of Togo. He was saying that there is the possibility of Togo joining. We don't think Togo, as a very important member of ECOWAS, will ever go to that extent. Regarding Ghana, don't forget, just about 2 Fridays ago, the newly elected president of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, was in Dakar to meet with the president of Senegal, Diomaye Faye. Diomaye Faye is the official mediator alongside President Faure Gnassingbé of Togo in terms of negotiations with these 2 countries. President John Dramani Mahama met with the president of Senegal in order to to choreograph their approach, because the mandate of the mediators is to make sure that we repair the damage that has occurred between the 2 countries. So Mahama appointing a special envoy does not in any way, mean that Ghana is either going to join them or not. Nigeria has sent a number of emissaries to Niger. in order to, repair the fallout, from what has happened. The foreign minister of Nigeria has been to Niger. The chief of defense staff has been to Niger, because without collaboration, the whole issue of, the ISWAP and others in across the border, about 1,200, 1,500 kilometer common border, there is just no way. So what I am saying, in effect, is that even if these two groups are not together, I think there will be the need for continual collaboration on this. So appointing a special envoy for the Sahelian countries, I think it falls within this perspective. Support to Diomaye Faye of Senegal in, trying to make sure that the fallout from this does not impact the core objectives of the region, fighting terrorism and increasing intra-regional trade. So ECOWAS is very much in favor of that. We are not enemies, with the alliance of Sahelian states. We are not enemies at all.
If you say you're not enemies, you just talked about Togo and Ghana. I'll talk about some of the other African states in ECOWAS. What's their response, to the exit of these three countries? If you like, can you read their body language? What does it say at the moment?
Yes, I think if you want to judge the body language of the member states, you have to start from the communiques that they have jointly adopted with regard to these countries. There is unanimity among the countries at the last summit of ECOWAS in Abuja here.
No dissent at all?
Yeah, in December 15.
I mean, no dissenting country.
No, listen, there is no international organization where you have unanimity. Okay, if you go to the UN Security Council, you go to the African Union Peace and Security Council, there are differences. But always the consensus is arrived at the end. We have to look at the consensus points and not the differences, because, an organization is not a bunch of, the people who just go and say, oh, yes, we agree to everything. People will have differences, but our feeling, is that there is unanimity among the ECOWAS heads of state with regard to the very key element, that to accept the withdrawal of the countries, to continue dealing with them, and that is why ECOWAS gave the 6-month grace period, okay, for these countries, for the mediation to continue within these 6 months. And if we succeed in getting them to change their mind, they come back to the community without any conditions. That's 6 months, which will expire in July 29th.
Just to see if they can change their minds.
Yeah, it's not an ultimatum. We are saying that within these 6 months, it's a cooling off period. Let people reflect. Let the two sides reflect, and then look at what bound them together and their differences.
Is it really a period to reflect, or ECOWAS is trying to, plead with these countries to come back?
It's grace period.
ECOWAS is trying to
plead with them, within this period to come back.
Oh, yes. Look, ECOWAS, our objective has always been for them to come back, and we are giving them all opportunities, to make sure that they change their mind. One thing is, all these three countries were founding members of ECOWAS in 1975, right? And at the formation of ECOWAS, membership was automatic. Right now, any member state that wants to rejoin ECOWAS will have to apply. So after 6 months, there is the possibility that there will not be automatic rejoining of ECOWAS. Mm-hmm. So this 6-month grace period is actually to give everybody the space, to think, to reflect, because people act at times on emotions, at times on other factors. Now, this cooling off period, let both sides sit through it and then see, let our, people, the populations of the region, and ECOWAS itself, is embarking on a strategic review of the regional integration project throughout, because this year is the 50th anniversary of ECOWAS.
You know, Ambassador, I remember the last time you were here. You know,
Yes.
that was when this grace period was given to this January for these 30 countries to rejoin ECOWAS.
Yes.
I remember you were here and you said confidently that you do not see the 3 countries exiting ECOWAS. Now, this has happened. In the next 6 months, there's, if because there's a clear possibility that they are not likely to rejoin ECOWAS. What do you think gives these countries the boldness? What gives them that confidence to want to do away with ECOWAS, from your point of view?
Yeah, look, from my, point of view, I think the 3 countries, I think they have gone a bit too far in the decision that they have taken. ECOWAS is still, extending the olive branch, to them. We are not seeing reciprocity from their side. So there is intransigence on their part that they are leaving. But one thing about ECOWAS is that there are fundamental principles of ECOWAS that I don't think the majority of the countries will, compromise on. And that is the strategic choice of the region for leaders to be chosen through the ballot box. And I think this is a fundamental difference between the 3 countries and ECOWAS. All the other reasons can be given, but this is the core of it, that ECOWAS does not allow for maintenance of power or accession to power, not through the ballot box. And ECOWAS has made a lot of progress.
Do you think that they are being influenced by any country or countries outside of ECOWAS or even outside of Africa?
Yes, and no. The success of ECOWAS in bringing countries back, to the democratic dispensation in the region in the past has been facilitated by multilateralism. From about 1990 up till about 2011, 2012, that was when Gaddafi was removed, there was unanimity in the world. If a country decides to leave ECOWAS and ECOWAS say, they stage a coup and ECOWAS want them to come back, at the time, Russia, for example, was still trying to find its feet in the international arena. China was also trying to, build its might at the time. There was unipolar world led by the U.S. with multilateralism. So there was unanimity. If a coup occurred, no coup plotter would get support from anywhere. So what I'll tell you is that today, the nature of the global environment is that we are living in a multipolar world, that anybody who wants to take any choice would have supported. If it is not from the Russia or China, it's going to be from the Middle Eastern countries, whether Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and others. They are all players today. This is the nature of the world today, and that is the labyrinth that ECOWAS is navigating as we speak. So it's a major factor. I'm not saying they are being influenced by outside forces, but the thing is that their positions will be supported by forces outside.
Whatever it is. I'm just wondering, Ambassador, what if any of these countries had officials in ECOWAS at the time they took this decision? What would have happened?
Which officials?
For instance, if you were from Niger,
yes,
as an example, what would have happened?
If I was from Niger?
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, look, we have got about 180 staff members of these 3 member states within ECOWAS institutions. Right?
I mean, senior officials.
Senior officials.
Of the
So
what
what happens to them now?
Including a commissioner. So like I told you, ECOWAS has given some kind of a cooling off period. The thing is that eventually the withdrawal of these countries will impact not only the staff of these countries, but also the assets and liabilities of ECOWAS and the affected member states. In Burkina Faso, ECOWAS has got 4 institutions. Eventually, if they withdraw, the principles of ECOWAS is that the staff of ECOWAS must be citizens of ECOWAS member states. So
fantastic.
that is fundamental.
You see, this crisis is a fallout of ECOWAS statutory opposition to unconstitutional change of government, which you have, hammered on in your conversation so far. Now, but some people say that the hard stance of ECOWAS has, it's hypocritical because it is not responding similarly to the spirit of what has been described as constitutional coups.
Yes.
Of course, by leaders in some of these ECOWAS member states, which also run counter to the spirit of protocol on democracy and good governance. So can you speak on that?
Exactly. I agree with you fully. You know, that I think the alacrity with which ECOWAS has dealt with the military when they take over power has not been the same, when it comes to sitting presidents who manipulate their instruments, constitutions, electoral processes in order for power elongation. There has been that. What I would say in defense of ECOWAS is that the level of democratic culture in a country determines that ECOWAS as an institution can do so much to prevent that. But if the population is dormant, if the population is not up to it, then it's going to be very difficult for ECOWAS to intercede on behalf of the people to stop sitting president in these countries from manipulations and others. We saw how the populations of Burkina Faso, there was a very powerful leader, Compaoré. In Burkina Faso, the population rose up against him, said they would never allow power elongation, and they got Compaoré out with the support of ECOWAS, African Union, and then the others. In the Gambia, it was the population who said, Yaya Jammeh, there is no way we are going to, you've lost the elections, you must go. And so it was very easy for ECOWAS to go. Democracy is not a one-day event. It's not. It's a process. But I just want to add that if you take the balance of it, right, in terms of liberal democracy that is being practiced, you can take Nigeria, you can take Liberia, you can take Ghana, you can take Senegal. We are on an upward trajectory.
All right.
And and we are not in a position to
We'll find out about this upward trajectory July 29th. You said that's when the 6 months deadline for the countries, if they would reconsider their stance. But you say that these countries may be influenced by some foreign powers. Is ECOWAS being influenced from any quarter?
Yes. Listen, ECOWAS has started engagement with all our partners, right?
So there's foreign influence?
Yes, with the partners, including Russia. Russia is the main military backer of these three countries.
Of ECOWAS? I'm talking about ECOWAS.
We're talking about ECOWAS. Is ECOWAS being
influenced by foreign powers?
Because it's part of the accusations against ECOWAS.
Yes, against them. That is ludicrous. ECOWAS is never influenced by any foreign power. The problem here that we have is that we have similar values with some of the foreign powers. EU, democracy is at the core of the EU. For example, the US will not tolerate the unconstitutional changes of government. So naturally, we have equal values. But at times, we have different priorities. Okay, and that is the situation. We have, priority for ECOWAS region, migration is not our core. It is about our young people who constitute about 60% of the population or more. How do we integrate them, productively into it?
Right.
So we may have what are similar values, and that does not mean that we are being controlled by these countries. ECOWAS has stood up, and I have been a part of negotiations with the European Union in Brussels and other places where ECOWAS has stood its ground, opposed positions of the European Union on critical global matters. You know, so for somebody to say ECOWAS is being influenced by external power, and particularly they mention France. It is France that controls ECOWAS. That's ludicrous. UEMOA was facilitated by France. These three member states are still members of UEMOA, the Francophone bloc, you know, in the region. I mean, do you want to tell me that it is France that controls Nigeria? It is France that influences Ghana? These are the two most populous, you know, parts and the biggest economies, together with Cote d'Ivoire. Are you telling me that we are being teleguided by these people? So people should distinguish between common values and then also playing subservient role, you know, to these people. ECOWAS has never, you know, done that, played any subservient role. ECOWAS has a very independent position, particularly on issues like the war in Ukraine. African Union, ECOWAS, we have a very distinct position from the European Union, for example. So for somebody, you know, to say that these powers, external powers, control ECOWAS, you know, for me, it's laughable.
Many thanks, Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa. You say ECOWAS is independent, but some will say that the body language of the countries you have mentioned also show that they are in synergy with France and some of these, you know, foreign powers. But we'll leave that for another day. Like I said, July 29th, I'm sure we'll have you again. If they rejoin, of course, we'll have another conversation. If they don't, the conversation continues. Many thanks, Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, ECOWAS, Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa. It was a pleasure to have you again.
Yeah, thank you. It's always a pleasure. You know, being your guest. You know, on this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. All right, so we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll get into our second conversation, which is around cancer. Stay with us.